welcome everyone to our next episode of EBC Unpack. My name is Mike, this is Matt, and today we're joined by Giuliano. Giuliano was pastor up at Sandstone Baptist Church near Bribey, and was also actually a member of this church before that. So, how you been last 2 years, has it been? How long's it been?
I don't know, man. I have a kid, so time is totally relative. So, no, it's been good. It's been good. I think it's been just a bit over a year since I left you guys, but It's good to be back. Yeah,
good to be back. Really cool to have you on. Come and jump into the Sermon on the Mount with us. Good to have you on. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're still in Sermon on the Mount. We're now going to be in chapter 6 of Matthew's Gospel. That's where we finished up last episode. So grab your Bible if you have it. We're going to read now chapter 6 from verse 1. Maybe I'll read the start, and then I'll hand over to one of you guys to read the next part, and then we'll read a little bit each. So this is where we pick off. Jesus says, "Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people to be seen by them. For then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpets before you, as the hypocrites do, in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." When you guys want to do the prayer part?
Yeah, I'll do that. So, "And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in synagogues and at street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who is in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, but for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. So pray then like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses."
And the rest?
Do you want to finish fasting? Yeah.
"And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you."
Awesome. So here we've got 3 kind of religious practices. Mm-hmm. We've got giving to the needy, so compassionate giving. We've got prayer, and we've got fasting. And you got the Lord's Prayer in there as well, and the bit about prayer, which is super important, and we're not going to focus on it this time. We'll come back and do a whole episode on it next time into the Lord's Prayer. Probably the most well-known part of the entire Bible, except for maybe John 3:16, right? This is well-known stuff, and so we'll come back to the Lord's Prayer. So today we're going to focus on these 3 things that Jesus is teaching us about. What's his big idea? Is there kind of like how do they all fit together? What do you reckon? What's Jesus saying about them all? What do they all have in common?
Well, I would definitely go with the hypocrisy, of course.
Hypocrisy, yeah.
I think when Jesus is addressing most of the religious practices, I think that's a tone that you always see coming through, because a lot of people would say Jesus, it was against religion, which is very common for people to say these days, but that's not actually true. Jesus is not against the practice of organized religion, but he's against the the cover up that it can be for people who do have the issue of hypocrisy. So I definitely see him doing that. He's encouraging people to keep on doing it, but doing with a different motivation. So that's, I would say, so hypocrisy is the main thing, at least that I see coming through.
Yeah. So it raises a thing, doesn't it? That there is the possibility of doing religion in such a way that it's insincere, that it's for show.
Yeah.
And in their day, the context is slightly different to ours in that the people who are the ruling religious class are notoriously hypocritical. And the people know that they're notoriously hypocritical, but don't feel comfortable saying that out loud most of the time. You could picture that this is the kind of thing that you say over the dinner table with your family, that the Pharisees are hypocrites and we don't really like them, but you wouldn't say that to the Pharisees. They're powerful, they're influential, they're respected in society. Whereas in our days, religious hypocrites are kind of universally despised. They're not respected. We almost have an anti-religious sentiment. But that there's a possibility. It is possible to do religion in a way that is
hypocritical,
insincere, and hypocritical. It's. I mean, that hypocritical word is great, right? It's from the old word that means an actor. It's pretending. I say I'm one thing, but I am another.
Came from what the Greek plays where they had masks.
That's right.
Literally masks on, and so
you could swap characters.
You swap characters, and so it's you're literally like what you said, right? You're covering up. There's a hiding behind this veneer, this religious veneer. Okay, something that I just wanted to think about here: hypocrisy. So the one thing you said that's just interesting is you said that the people knew that they were hypocrites. Sometimes it's obvious when someone's a hypocrite, but I would say almost most of the time, hypocrisy is something that is internal, right? As in, like, it's it's a motive thing that isn't actually totally obvious. So there's people praying on the street corners. They might look pious and holy, but inside there's a motivation that's about them and not about God, right? I guess How much is it internal? How much is it external? Is there are there any markers that we can see hypocrisy in someone else? Obviously, when they say one thing, do another, that's obvious, right? But maybe it's a bit more subtle, a bit more dangerous than that blatant hypocrisy.
Well, I think if we think of religious hypocrisy, the things that come to mind for us are the big failings of religious leaders. Right. So we think of the person who preaches a morality, and then it comes out that they're not living by that morality. They divorce their wife and move in with the secretary whilst in the ministry. Or we think of the failings of denominations to deal with the problems of sin in their clergy and to sweep it under the rug, and which is now in the sort of the social consciousness about what religion means. They're the people who covered up all of the horrendous sin that was going on for such a long time. So I think those are the things that we easily think of. The televangelists. Everyone loves to hate the televangelists, right? The how many private jets does a pastor need to have? There's a guy whose last name is Dollar. I don't think was he born? Did he change his name to Dollar?
Sounds like it, man.
I'm going to change my last name to Trillion.
Dollars.
Past a trillion. So we know that. But probably what doesn't come to mind for us is the more personal version of it, right? What does hypocrisy look like in me? And hang on, that's a different question.
That's a much different question.
I actually preached on Ephesians 4 yesterday, and even though hypocrisy is not openly addressed on that section of the book, but Paul is talking about this, and I use the word schizophrenia, that there is between sometimes, because he's saying you should no longer walk as the Gentiles do, and then he goes about on how we should walk, but he's saying this to Christians, and so sometimes we do have this mismatch, I would say, of what we believe and what we think we know about God and how we live, and then Paul is saying you shouldn't live like that. I believe what Jesus is trying to do is a little bit of that here, but I agree. I think he's going after the big sharks here. He's not going. But yes, but I do believe, like you, Matt, in that we do have to be very careful at not pointing out, the hypocrisy on the big ones, and whilst ignoring the hypocrisy in us. And I think especially when it comes to ministry, the big thing that hypocrisy does is that deprives us of the power to do it. It might not, we might not notice that, but if you go to the end of the Sermon on the Mount, what they say about Jesus, that they're marveling at the authority in which he was teaching, because he was teaching as he had authority. And I think eventually what hypocrisy does to us, especially to teachers, but to everyone, is we lose that authority in communicating, because most people won't know it, but we know it. So we start to lack the confidence. We start to lack those things that are foundational for our ministries and I'm talking about the everyday person here, not just, so how are you going to witness to a person, for example, a person struggling with pornography? How are you going to do that if you every day you do that a little bit? So you kind of like you lose the confidence. You start to lose the prophetic voice that is inside of every Christian. So I think that's the difference. In the outside, I think the Christians sometimes that lack power, they're giving in too much into the things that they shouldn't, and they're acting a bit hypocritical because of that. I think so.
Jesus says something similar, right? There's that, I'd have to find it, but he says, "Don't give the devil a foothold," right? Is that in the Gospels?
Ephesians, actually.
Is it Ephesians?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Passage that I just
right.
quoted.
Okay, so don't give the devil a foothold, which is this idea that sinning is like giving the devil purchase in my life, leverage. And so I'm going to willfully embrace some sin. I'm not going to reject it, even though I'm claiming to be walking as a Christian. And I think, well, it's just some small thing. It's just my taxes. It's just what I look at in my private time. Yeah. It's just how I treat my kids. It's just how I do my job. But yeah, then later on, that moment comes when you're meant to be serving God in some other area of your life, and the devil's like, you didn't say the magic word. I know who you are, and if you keep trying to represent this Jesus guy in public, I'm going to tell them. That totally is a principle. Yeah.
So I guess what we're butting up against is that there is this reality where every single believer has a degree of hypocrisy in their lives because there is still some sin in us, right? And I feel this especially as a pastor who preaches, when we're preaching this perfect law of God and this perfect gospel and this perfect calling to work in holiness. I think the last verse we read in chapter 5 was "Be perfect, like I am perfect." I think that's what he says, right?
That's fun.
Yeah. Therefore, you must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And we preach this, and then in our lives there is some degree of hypocrisy because we're not perfectly perfect. Okay, how do we deal with this? Let's just talk a little bit about like what that wrestle looks like. We've been kind of drawing that a little bit. But, okay, so at what point is... Yeah.
What's he pulling out of chapter... Like, think about chapter 6 in particular, right?
Yeah.
Where Jesus has just contrasted two ways to us. I suppose what we're saying is he's not contrasting a perfect believer and an imperfect believer.
No.
He's contrasting something else.
Yeah.
And whatever that thing is, I think, is the thing that helps us deal with the reality of living as imperfect people and trying to follow the perfect God. I mean, if I had to summarize what I think it is it's the heart, right? That there is there's an intention which is not seen by anybody but God that matters more than the external action.
Yeah.
Like think about what he's done in all three situations. The giving to the needy is great. But if you're giving to the needy in order to be seen by others, you've already received your reward. Right?
Yeah.
Like, if I go and I take my millions of dollars and I give it to charity in order to be seen, in order to gain standing, either in the community or in the religious community, God looks at that and goes, "Congratulations, waste of money." Not in the sense that money's still doing good things for the people I gave it to. That's still good.
Yeah.
But it's just no good for my soul. That I'm a hypocrite. I'm not doing it for the right motive, and that motive is actually crucial. It's not optional.
No.
That the heart is actually of first importance, not second importance when it comes to religious action.
Yeah.
That's it. That changes everything, doesn't it?
It's the key, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I hear the words of Jesus here, it sounds very John the Baptistic in the way how he's preaching here, and how the soldiers approach John the Baptist. Okay, so what do we do? So those who used to do this, don't do this. So then he starts to lay some some foundations for the understanding of the word that I believe to be repentance. You know, I think what Jesus is seeking. I think the Sermon on the Mount is very multifaceted. What Jesus is actually trying to achieve here, it's a multi-directional approach that Jesus is taking. But one of the things I believe he's trying to achieve is a repentant heart. It's a heart that it will understand that there is much more to this life of holiness than what I can contribute towards, to the point that will bring him to the understanding that I need a savior. You know? So I think the ground that Jesus is trying to lay here is very much like the John the Baptist preparing the road, which is like having you understand that it's beyond you in a way. And as you understand that, you're not so much concerned about, I need to tick all those boxes, but I am actually trying to understand that those boxes are way beyond me. And I need someone to actually come and tick them for me and transform my heart, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think that even that desire, we don't have it. So when I look those things, we don't have that desire unless something changes. You know, so I think that's one of the catches. And when we read the Sermon on the Mount, is wow, this is beyond me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the other word that comes to mind, so use the word of, you know, it's about repentance. The other word I think that comes to mind is, I think in this passage in particular, is sincerity. Right? Sincerity of heart. So there isn't a posturing. This is what he's talking about, right? He's talking about posturing here. The people doing these things to be seen, right? It's like, no, before God.
To be seen by others.
By others, not by God.
Rather than to be seen by God.
That's right. It's posturing, right? It's putting the mask on. It's the hypocrisy thing. Sincerity. Man, a sincere heart before God, that is what he's after. I think that's one of the keys to what he's trying to say here. Did you have something else you wanted to say on this? Yeah, go. All right.
So, let's think this through. Two things are being contrasted here. A way of doing life, and specifically religious action, but life in general, which is pleasing to God and brings reward from God. Is being contrasted with a insincere way of doing life and religion, which God despises and brings no reward other than some temporary reputation boost.
That's right.
I think anyone who is sane, when offered, God could be pleased with your life, or people could be briefly pleased with your life, know which one is the better option. So why do we choose the silly one so consistently? Like, what is the motivation that drives us towards hypocrisy? Like, what are we? There's some selfish motive in it, right? What is it that we're looking for? Do you think?
I think it would come down to a fear of man. Do you mean a desire to be accepted by others? That reputation thing is, I think, when it comes down to it, it's about fear of being rejected, right? So there is a seeking acceptance, seeking an identity in the kudos of other people, and in this case through a religious thing. Again, 2020 in Australia, not super popular to go that route if you want the kudos of people. This day it was.
Actually, I would suggest that it is. It's just not Christianity necessarily.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
So, what is the opposite of the fear of man? It's the fear of God, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, that motivates a different kind of life. When I say the fear of God, right? The right kind of fear, not the terror.
A holy respect.
But the holy respect for the God who holds the world and holds your life.
I think there's two kinds of people who like hypocrisy.
Okay.
And the first is the one I think that's obvious to us, which is the person who wants religion to be only skin deep.
Yeah.
And that's the easy option, isn't it? It's going to cost me less to look like I belong to God than to actually belong to God. I don't have to make any of the sacrifices that a genuine believer is going to have to make. I can have the life I've wanted, but also have this insurance policy off to the side that I look like I'm a religious person and I can think to myself I'm secure eternally. That person likes hypocrisy, is drawn to hypocrisy. But the other people who are drawn to hypocrisy are the people who hate religion. Because which person who's ever pointed the finger and said that stereotypical "I hate organized religion" sentence has a holy life?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like when Jesus does the let's have him who's not sinning cast the first stone. I think if we apply that measure to people who are sometimes critical of faith, that their arguments fall apart too. Where they hold God and the church to a higher standard than they're willing to live by.
Yeah.
Isn't that the piece? It's what hypocrisy is it's a veneer that makes me not have to pay the price.
Yeah.
Like it. Ultimately, that's what it is. I can have the blessings, but not the curses. I can have the rights, but not the responsibilities.
Yeah, I think just tapping on the issue of reward that you mentioned.
It's totally going to go there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because, as you can see, both approaches bring a reward. You know, and the question is what makes us go one way rather than the other way. And I think very much. It's just very much a pragmatic approach, or even the timing of the rewards as well. So the timing of the reward that you get from doing something that can be approved and seen by man is almost instantaneous. Whilst when we talk about rewards that are heavenly rewards, some of them we may not even enjoy in this life. And I think we're quickly seduced by the here and now, and
so it's short term versus long term.
That's it, and then we kind of miss out on things that are future, and that because we want the here and now. So I think it's very much like when we talk about Esau, you know, and the pot of lentil, you know, it's very much that, you know. That's here now. I'm hungry. What good is that whole, you know, firstborn privileges and whatever, but I'm gonna die kind of thing. Right. He wasn't, but I think that's the same approach we've got when it comes to that, choosing which reward I want. You know, I want the one that brings me the most benefit now. I suppose. Yeah,
because it feels more tangible, and we just, as you say, we're seduced by the here and now because it seems bigger and better. Even though when you think about it, how can it be bigger than better than an eternal reward from God?
Which is why Jesus has to come out and say it so bluntly when he says, "What does it profit a person? To gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul." Would you rather not suffer the loss of all things?
Which is really very difficult when you think about when the rubber actually hits the road. It's difficult. So I like to think, like, for example, prophets like Jeremiah. You know, when he was prophesying, there were heaps of other false prophets prophesying and different things that he was prophesying, and he was ostracized. He lost basically everything that he could possibly lose, reputation, family, and all of that. And those guys were like, you know, in banquets with kings and all of that because they were saying the things that. So what do you do when you're actually trying to win that, you know, reward that's future? Your life here is not going to please many people. So what do you do when the numbers in your church starts to go down? What do you do when your family members start to actually not invite you into parties anymore? So when the price is starting to accumulate and start to pay it, sometimes I think it could be one of those things like I'm just not ready for this life of losing so much in this life, you know. There could be that as well, I think.
Okay. I think it is worth thinking about this idea of reward a bit, right? I think I counted 7 times Jesus said the word reward, right? And we've just been talking about, right? There's the 2 types, right? The temporary and the eternal. I remember sitting in Bible college class, right? And this topic of reward came up, right? And I remember sitting there, and there was almost like disbelief in the room that we could even talk in the category of a reward for something like giving and prayer and fasting, because it just reeks of worksiness, right? Yeah. And we're such grace people, we're gospel people, you know, we're gospel centered, we love that stuff. And so we're so careful to make sure, no, you can't earn your way anywhere with God, right? Like everything we have is a gift from God. And yet, 7 times the word rewards talked about, one as like the temporary reward you get from giving, but then the other one being this, the Father rewards prayer. and fasting and giving. Okay, so, and like it's just everywhere else in the scripture, right? This idea of reward, as much as it makes us uncomfortable. Firstly, I guess 2 questions to throw out. Why do you think we're so uncomfortable about it? Why does it kind of grate on us a little bit? I remember, like, people were like, are we going to get different sized mansions in heaven? Like, is that what he's talking about? Like, if you have a bigger mansion than me, won't that make me jealous of you? And there's no sin in heaven? How's this going to work, right? It's like, as if that's the argument for why there can't be reward. We can just ignore all these other verses. But what do we do with it? Because it feels to clash with the gospel message of salvation by grace alone, not through works.
It's emerging in 2 categories, isn't it? So category 1 is the answer to the question, how am I saved? And category 2 is the answer to the question, what's the effect of my saved life? Category 1, how am I saved, is an in-out question. You're in the kingdom or you're not in the kingdom. And the Bible is super, super clear that works contribute nothing to your salvation. So my entrance into the kingdom of heaven, my entrance into being a child of God, my adoption, my new birth have got nothing to do with works. Works, they are not a reward of my good performance. Like, we've got whole books of the Bible written, several of them, articulating to us that that's not how you gain God's favor and go from being his enemy to being his child. But now that we are his children, then there's a second category, isn't there? Which is, we're no longer talking about salvation, we're talking about obedience. The saved life. And I mean, the Bible is entirely consistent when it talks about the fact that what we do matters. Even though we're saved by grace, what we do still matters. Not for our salvation, but for another reason. And part of it is that God rewards obedience. He does. But what those rewards are, not entirely crystal clear.
Any thoughts, Giuliano?
Funny enough, I know how
Is it the mansion thing?
Maybe the dollar
mansion
surname or whatever. I don't know.
There's a famous story. I want to hear what you say, but there is a famous story where back in the day when the 2 famous evangelists, Wycliffe and Wesley, one was a Calvinist and one was an Arminian, and this is back in the day before people from either camp thought the other camp was Christian. There's an animosity between the 2 which was bigger than our day. And somebody once asked Wycliffe, "Do you think that Wesley is a Christian? Do you think you'll see him in the kingdom of heaven?" And Wycliffe's answer was something along the lines of, "No, I don't think I will see him because I'll be too far up the back and he'll be too far up the front."
Just honoured the man. And everyone was like, that was not what I was expecting.
Maybe that's what it is. You better seat in the auditorium when the worship services are happening.
I hate that picture of of heaven being like an endless church service. Which is kind of like what you're suggesting, right? We're in the auditorium and we're worshiping. It's like, but
maybe we'll be there on Sundays.
Works. Right? I don't think that's going to... just Sundays.
Gosh, so much good stuff to talk about. It's very difficult.
Let's go back to this idea of...
You were about to say something incredibly profound.
Man, my mind's everywhere now. I was reading this morning an article on the Gospel Coalition.
I saw it.
Did you
I didn't read it, but I saw the headline. I was like, talking about that today.
That was it. I got to read it, which was pretty good. But,
so you're prepped to go.
It was just a confirmation of what I already knew, and it was talking about the whole passage in 1 Corinthians where ministers basically are going to be their work is going to be judged by the fire, and whatever survives of it, and even though the person is going to be saved, there is a category of reward based on the work you do as a result of your ministry. They don't get into detail again into what type of rewards. They sort of hint at the passage, where Jesus talk about authority. You're going to receive authority over 2 cities because of the 10 cities. So they sort of varying degrees of glory, maybe as well. Sort of your likeness with God and something like that. We don't know. I think it's really, in a way, it's not helpful to go into that because God doesn't say it, and if it doesn't say it, I suppose there is a reason for it. But we can dream, we can talk about it. But maybe that, I think, maybe authority, maybe glory. Now,
maybe I'll finally be able to play the piano.
I doubt that. Yeah. But we never know, Matt. Keep praying, brother.
Yes, in behind closed doors, though, in secret.
One thing that I like is when you look at God dealing with, for example, the the angels in heaven in different biblical passages, you see that they are awarded different glories and different assignments and different things based on who they are. So, for example, you see very clearly that Gabriel, and I always thought about that. You see Gabriel working a lot, in the birth of Jesus. Now, bringing messages to everyone. I was thinking, but he has so many angels up there. Why just use one of them? I suppose would be a glorious ministry. To come and announce the birth. So I don't know. And then again, this is just a thought, but I don't know.
Fun to think about, though.
It is
super fun to think about.
Yeah.
The one that I always think of in the Bible is the way the Bible talks about the martyrs as having this, like they're gonna get
some special.
They're going to get some special treatment, right? That they're going to be. We're going to honor those people in heaven, those people who have died for their faith. They're going to get special honor. And I think how good and right is that? Like, is there any jealousy in me about that? Like, heck no. I'm just. I want to give those men and women honor.
You're going to be one of them.
I'm going to be one of them. You mean that's threat? This hasn't gone on the internet yet. So if it doesn't go up. And the other verse I think of is the verse where it talks about how some people are going to get into heaven smelling like smoke.
Yeah, that's it.
As in, like, by the skin of their teeth.
Smelling like hell. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly right. Man, that's a sobering thought, right? So there is this kind of. I think it plays into this idea of reward. Always want to just like put that right next to what you were saying before, right? Like, let's not get our categories confused, right? The gospel is still true, but we can't just ignore all these other verses.
The road to justification is different to the road to the fulfillment of the life of faith.
Yeah.
Maybe seeing the whole salvation in those three categories, the whole justification, sanctification, and glorification might help a little bit here. So when you talk about justification, you're talking about salvation, yes, but that's salvation past, present, and future. So kind of it may be helpful in that way, I suppose. Yeah.
I reckon that the last part here is this is one of those things which causes us to butt up against cultural assumptions about what's fair. Right?
Okay.
So every now and then we find in the Bible that there's a worldview which is different to the one that we've inherited from just the place we live in. One of our cultural assumptions about fair, and it is an assumption, it's not a thing that I think many of us have considered to any depth, is that fair means same. Fair means same. So if you have a reward in eternity in heaven that I don't have, how is that fair would be the objection that we have. But it's just not a biblical objection. Clearly, different people have different stuff. God gives different gifts to different people. He doesn't treat everybody exactly the same. And yet, it can also be true at the same time that he treats us without partiality. So there is a way for fair to look different. And that is just part of how God views the world. It clashes with our culture.
He does say that he'll have grace on whom he'll have grace, and have mercy on whom he'll have mercy.
It certainly clashes with how my children view the world.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think of the parable Jesus says, right, with the workers showing up at 8 o'clock and they work hard
Excellent
all day, and then some workers show up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at the end of the day's work, one person worked 10 hours, the other person worked 1, and they all get paid the exact same. And the people that complain being like, they get the same pay, we worked the whole day and they only worked an hour. It's like, God
did I deceive you?
I said I'll give you this much. I gave you this much. I didn't deceive you. I'm allowed to be generous to these people, and that doesn't concern you. Like, you have no right to.
This illustration, the pay is representing salvation, not reward.
That's right.
Yeah. You all get the salvation, even if you come in at the age of 80 or if you come in at the age of 10 and serve God your whole life.
Yeah.
Yes, you both get the salvation.
The principle, though, of when we receive grace, we have no right to complain about someone else getting grace that might look different.
Yeah. I don't have every spiritual gift. There are people who have gifts that I don't have.
Yeah.
There are people who are beautiful, and I'm clearly not. And like,
Giuliano.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
come on.
Yeah. Clearly not.
You put me next to him on purpose, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah. I'm sitting over here on purpose. That's right.
Yeah. That's within God's economy of fair. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's important to say as well, like, when we're talking about rewards, and we've been focusing a lot on the heavenly rewards, but I think some of those rewards that Jesus is talking about, they're also earthly rewards. I suppose I can think myself, like those prayer warriors that I know, that they have so much intimacy with God, and they have so much in their lives in terms of steadfastness and the power, authority for ministry, and all of that. So I believe there are some rewards that we actually get to enjoy even in this life for acting and behaving in the way that
Agreed.
Jesus,
Yes,
Jesus
definitely.
is talking. So
So
I think it's also good to look at it. It's like, I know it's not all future, but it's not all present. It's
both.
kind of
It is
both.
it is a blessed life.
What's
to walk with God.
the part where Jesus says that anyone who's going to lose father or brother or mother in order to follow me is going to gain 1,000-fold in this life and the next, he says. It's very a very specific thing, that if you're coming into my kingdom and your family rejects you, you're going to inherit a bigger family, both in this life, in the church, and also in the next, in belonging to my family in the kingdom. There are here rewards also.
It's not all future. Some of them happen here and now.
Yeah.
I think we might wrap it up there, otherwise we'll go all day long. Thanks for coming. So good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to have you back, and hope you enjoyed the chat. If you're listening in,
We could film an episode on a boat at Bribey.
Oh,
Bribey episode.
That would be amazing. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
sounds
become
good.
literal fishers. A fish, not a
Fish
man.
is a fish.
Yeah, or fish and chips, maybe. Something
Fish and
like
chips done. Hope you enjoyed the chat on the start of Matthew chapter 6. Join us next week when we're going to be cracking into the Lord's Prayer. We skipped right past it today, but we'll be in it next time. So hope you join us again. See you next time. Thanks.